Well, you're in for a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jerry Seinfeld.
Stop laughing. It's not funny.
Alright, so I'm some asshole who watches comedians on podcasts and overanalyzes their body language to get attention. People are getting tired of these hack reactionary comedians, meaning almost all comedians. Imagine being a good person and walking onto a stage, amplifying your voice using a microphone, demanding the audience's full attention, and getting mad at anyone who takes that for even a moment. Then the same night, walks to another room and says the same things in the same order with the same inflection, just so they can pretend their dick jokes aren't political. You might call that narcissism. I call it sociopathy. Stand-up comedians are sociopaths. They're the worst people alive. Telling a comedian that stand-up is awful makes them angrier than another comedian on stage unironically heiling Hitler.
Wir wollen arbeiten, aber das Volk selbst, es muss mithelfen. Es soll nie glauben, dass ihm plötzlich Freiheit, Glück und Leben vom Himmel geschenkt wird. Alles wurzelt nur im eigenen Willen. Lalz an fremde Hilfe, niemals an Hilfe, die außerhalb unserer eigenen Nation, unseres eigenen Volkes liegt. In uns selbst allein liegt die Zukunft des deutschen Volkes.
Alright, sorry about that. I'll use my regular voice. That's enough of parroting Too Lazy to Try. Which, by the way, what an indictment of stand-up comedy. Not just the post-cancel culture Joe Roganification of what stand-up is apparently supposed to be. Hacky, outdated, narcissistic, lazy, money-grubbing jokes, where the punchline is how fast you can point to a stereotype honed sometime between vaudeville and Johnny Carson hosting the Tonight Show in New York City. But pay pigs of these wealthy, reactionary losers who seemingly only exist to sell branded hot sauce and whiskey. Growing so tired of these increasingly out-of-touch assholes talking for hours each week about their 1% lifestyle, they have to start watching people overanalyze the body language of the voices in their head they've since grown to resent. Maybe it's time to admit stand-up comedy is a dying art form, and to call it dying is to be nice. This isn't a beatnik cafe in the Village in 1950s New York City, where it's edifying to hear Lenny Bruce say out loud, "It sure feels great to come on my wife's tits. Come on, admit it. You come on your wife's tits. Come, I'm saying come, and tits." You can't hear those words on TV because it's 1963 and it's hypothetical. You can't watch tribute videos because your brain hasn't yet been destroyed by everyone being online all day long for over a decade. You're not imbibing a schizophrenic cacophony of all the world's voices yelling concurrently, so you're not yet reduced down to the role of asking people at open mics what they do for a living, allowing you to cut a clip of your alleged quick wit to get attention online, hopefully funneling rubes into a venue to pay you money to force laughs out of their collective inaction. Just like now, nobody needs late-night talk show monologues to read Twitter at you, nobody needs to sit in a bar and listen to people read the comment section at 1 o'clock in the morning, sprinkled with punchlines you can summarize as gay, black, Jew, fat, dumb. Nothing's off limits of stand-up comedy, except for making fun of stand-up comedy.
I know I look like a person, place, or thing.
Oh, I don't even need a punchline to get a laugh.
Dating's weird, right?
Yeah, they get it.
Are you familiar with pop culture reference?
No need to be specific. If you've never done stand-up comedy, like I have,
You gonna give me a command or what?
you wouldn't know how awful it is being around comedians. People bullied in high school who don't want to stop the cycle of abuse. Otherwise, they'd have to grow as a person.
If I keep this up, 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 I can finally buy property in the metaverse.
People who turn ostensibly being funny into their entire personality. They're incapable of having a conversation, which is that thing where two or more people take turns exchanging ideas that don't exclusively relate to themselves. Have you heard the one about how I'm not a real person? No, I'm not playing a character. I'm basically a dry Xanax addict. It's like being a dry drunk, except drunks have personalities. If you start doing stand-up comedy, you're gonna meet a lot of me. We'll come up to you, acting like we're gonna have a conversation, but really, I'm just testing my set on you. Then when I'm on stage, you'll realize I'm doing the same set I did to you, except I've iterated things you said to me during the set I pretended wasn't my set. Afterward, you'll hear me talking to someone else, recognizing that I'm doing my set again to someone who didn't see me on stage. Then you'll have to hear my set 1,000 more times. We should build new trains in the United States so we can fill them up with stand-up comedians and send them to extermination camps. The world would be a much better place if we exterminated the stand-up comedians. They're the modern-day philosophers, which is why they have to be taken out. We need to send ICE in to kill Tony and round up everyone in the audience and on stage, except for the Latinos, and ship them off to El Salvador. I'm joking for the most part. There are still people out there finding relatively unique ways to perform. Like me.
This is my impression of stand-up comedy. I shouldn't exist anymore. Whatever incisiveness I once represented has been fully rubbed away by the accelerative force of the internet. Broadcasting a constant stream of the schizophrenic cacophony of everyone alive yelling concurrently.
That's a callback to narcissism, a hallmark of stand-up comedy. But look at what got us to this point, living inside a hyper-capitalist techno-feudal surveillance state where the only currency is constant, toxic positivity and optimism. Also known as Bitcoin. Comedy. Amusing yourselves to death, turning politics into entertainment, and then pretending you're not being political. Johnny Carson wasn't political, he swore. Despite ruling late night with an iron fist, laundering Ronald Reagan, a Hollywood actor who became a Hollywood president, highlighting our constant right-wing tread. As conservatives get everything they want structurally, the culture is always more socially liberal, which makes them feel aggrieved. Why won't the movies and TV reflect my mores? Probably because I, like everyone else, is a hypocrite. Replace the 70s tie-dye with an 80s suit and tie, say no to drugs, but fuel the financialization of our economy with cocaine, hookers, and an increasing gap between the rich and poor. I can excuse my middle-class indiscretions while watching the cinema verite cameras on cops turn arresting poor people into entertainment. They shouldn't have broken the law by smoking crack instead of snorting coke. Won't someone please think of the prison dynasties?
The former Hickman County Detention Center will be sold at auction. With modifications, this great building could serve as doctor's offices or a small office complex, a hardware store or building supply center, a daycare center, an animal shelter, a destination restaurant.
We exported manufacturing to developing nations, destroying the unions that allowed boomers to buy houses and go to college without drowning in debt. How else are we going to keep large towns and small cities afloat? We must have the largest prison population in the world to keep people in exurban sprawl, paying their taxes and eating at fast casual chain restaurants. They may be spending more and more time sitting in traffic, driving to the job they probably hate, on clogged highway systems due to isolating car-centric sprawl, but at least Howard Stern keeps us laughing in the 90s as the whack pack fuels the guffaws of construction workers building tract homes made from particle board, before the Purdue family hooks them on prescription opioids. Everything's funny, especially remembering 9/11, the 10-year anniversary of no longer having the Soviet Union as an adversary. The industry of war must continue, so here comes our 21st century tribal dance, bombing the Muslims. They don't believe in democracy, meaning having a choice between Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony. We'll inoculate ourselves from the overreach of the Bush administration by shoving a wiffle ball bat into drunk teenagers' pussies. Smart consumers of Reactionary Knots Radio Voices chose the original podcast, hosted by a fail-son golf caddy and a white nationalist handyman, who realized the real money is in letting comedy seller comedians roast each other's insecurities. You're a morbidly obese, know-it-all, grandstanding, misogynistic black man, Patrice O'Neill, whose understanding that our country is structurally racist allowed Anthony Cumia to whitewash his bigotry. Isn't it hilarious that Jim Norton pays trafficked women to jerk him off inside massage parlors? He may look like the inner layer of a nesting doll found on the trophy shelf of a pedophile serial killer. But now that he's married to a trans woman, Anthony Cumia can pretend he hasn't literally heiled Hitler within the past 48 hours. Nobody finds you funny, Joe Rogan. But your appearances on a satellite radio show that depressingly influence the culture in ways that should make us all reconsider taking our next breath exist between you bickering with Andy Dick on the set of news radio and interviewing Donald Trump on a podcast that pays over $50 million a year. Everything's a joke until a cavalcade of people who say they're idiots who shouldn't be taken seriously are. Let's rally to restore sanity, that is, the sanctity of our bank accounts. The problem is not the foundation of a genocidal empire.
With every passing year, the bonds of friendship between America and Israel have grown stronger. America stands for peace.
With what results we know only too well.
And so does Israel.
The name of this system, Smart Shooter, an Israeli company founded 9 years ago.
It's that the wrong floating heads are screaming at us in the Black Mirror. You're either conservative and convinced wokeness is destroying the pure art form of me. Comedy comes in prime numbers, that was 5. Or you're a liberal, that is globally conservative, hoping that punching up with clapter will let you sell branded hot sauce sourced from South American artisanal abuela pepper colonies. How much longer can this realistically continue? In the Catskill days, you could coast in the same hour for decades. Take my wife, please. We're all miserably married because divorce was a faux pas into the 70s. Then George Carlin showed you had to make a new special every few years, honing your never-ending message of sit down, shut up, pay me money, and laugh at my command. So I can ensure they'll make a 4-hour documentary about my important voice after I die, keeping my estate flowing so my failed children can invest in defending my legacy. Now as time continues accelerating, thanks to the destructive force of the internet, even if you made a new special every few months, that's not enough to feed the piggies, consuming podcasts about podcasts about podcasts, knowing more about the national comedy scene than their own families. Wake up, babe. I forgot your name, but we'll never forget that my good friend Nick Mullen worked at GameStop and had an idiot boss, which is why live stand-up becomes something of an ethereal piece of merchandise. You don't get a physical item until you walk to the merch table after the show and purchase a t-shirt that literally says, I am a disgusting pay pig and don't deserve love. It's worth it though. You get to pay extra for a picture with a voice inside your head, who you haven't yet grown to resent because they talk to you outside like a human being for 7 minutes while smoking a cigarette, giving you perfect fodder to make a comment on a post 9 months in the future when another pay pig starts questioning daddy, wondering if it's time to move their worship to another competing brand of dissociative voice. No, branded voice in my head is the GOAT.
Something's been bothering me a lot lately. No cap. Which is how quickly the internet is influencing language, specifically slang. And I hope once I'm done, you'll think this bit bops. Here's a hot take. The internet is the GOAT at rapid change.
I've listened to them talk for 1,000 hours. I've watched them walk from podcast set to podcast set, making other podcast daddies laugh, making me feel a little less alone inside an isolating cyberpunk dystopia, increasingly being controlled by server farms powering language learning models who tell me life has never been greater, thanks to having my choice in hundreds of competing hamburger fast food chains. At a certain point, we're all just admitting defeat, unless victory is accepting the United States is the Fourth Reich, and you think that's fucking awesome. We may be destroying the world thanks to our insatiable appetites for air conditioning and melted cheese, requiring an exploited underclass of global peasants, victim to the whims of our stock market, itself victim to the whims of amphetamine-addicted psychopaths who make investment decisions like a sitcom character lying about their name by scanning the room for proper nouns. We have to become more nationalistic. We have to increase the size of our military, domestically and abroad, amplifying our dystopia, because climate change is already creating mass migratory movements. We can't admit we were wrong. That will require structural change. Why don't you just enjoy the spoils before it all spoils? A majority of this country is effectively poor, 1 or 2 steps away from homelessness, waiting for their job to be automated by a tech utopian ghoul who took ayahuasca in Peru to assuage their feelings of do-goodery, or their uninsured house to be destroyed by an apparently once in a 100-year freak weather event. But think of the access you have to competing corn slurries. I'm sure once the last engineers who designed and maintain our Oreo cookie conveyor belts die off with their institutional knowledge, We can take the reins by either watching how it's made YouTube videos or asking ChatGPT to design an hallucinated Rube Goldberg style replacement. Maybe that's too positive an outlook. Maybe the future is worse. As we can tell from every comment section, everyone online is ostensibly funny. The only thing that matters is the joke to help the medicine go down easier. At this rate, everyone will be a stand-up comedian, the only possible career path in the camps. Each night there will be open mics where everyone does the same set. You ever noticed how prison guard Johnson be raping? The audience will guffaw as they chant, He do be raping! Including prison guard Johnson, who told me if I agreed to get into business with him, selling shirts that say, I got raped by prison guard Johnson and all I got was this cum-stained t-shirt, I can be one of the greatest stand-up comedians who ever lived.